In the previous lecture, what we have seen is we have seen our JSON. How do we write a JSON format? Okay, how do we write a JSON syntax? So we haven't seen how do we write a JSON syntax. Basically, here where we have taken an object and we have simply converted it into a string. Okay, so this string format is basically the JSON format over here. Okay, so here I will write our how do we write a JSON. Okay, what is the JSON format? Okay, so I will use this JSON format variable and I will write a JSON format over here. Okay, so how do we write a JSON? So I've told you JSON is basically a string. Okay, so here we are, you can see we are converting this object into string form. Okay, so we are converting it into JSON so that the server can read that particular data. Okay, so server only understands the text format or the string. Okay, so here this is the JSON format that I am writing over here. Okay, so how do we write a JSON? Okay, so I have to mention everything in the string format. Okay, like name Ankit, age, you can give any age over here, 21. Okay, like this. So we are mentioning everything inside the quotes. Okay, so this is the symbol that we are using a JSON format. Okay, so all the things are in string format over here. Okay, suppose now here we have our JSON format. I want to convert it into object. Previously what we did is we have an object and we convert it into JSON format. Now we have our JSON format and what we want is we want back our JavaScript object. Okay, so this JSON gives one more methods to convert the particular JSON to an object. Okay, so here we have used stringify method. Now we'll use our parse method. Okay, so here I will store it in our obj variable and I will simply use our JSON dot. So here you can see we are getting our parse method over here and I will simply pass this JSON format variable into this particular parse method over here. Okay, so we have to parse this means we have to convert this JSON into an object. Okay, now I will console log this particular obj and here what I will do, I will also console log this JSON format over here like this and I will comment this out. Now we'll save this. So we are console logging our JSON format and then we are parsing this JSON and storing it in our obj variable and then we are console logging this obj variable over here. Okay, now let's see what is the result. So we'll open our inspector. So we can open our inspector by using F12. So you can see first we are getting an object. Okay, so here you can see this is the object format over here. This is the object actually. Okay, so here first we'll refresh. Now you can see first we are getting our JSON. Okay, so here first we are getting our JSON because we are mentioning this JSON and we are console logging this JSON over here. Okay, so first we are getting our JSON format, that is it is in string format over here. You can see string is always written inside quotes. Okay, so name is written inside quotes, Ankit is written inside quotes, age is written inside quotes. This is a number, so it is not written in quotes. Okay, the second is name Ankit. Okay, this is in object format. Okay, so in object we can access our data with the dot operator. Suppose we want to access the name like this, so you will see what will be the result over here. Obj.name we are console logging Now let's refresh. So it will give us Ankit. Okay. But in this case, here suppose what I will do, I will do the same thing. Okay. I want to access the name. So here we are using the same format that we have used with our object. And let's see whether it gives the name or not. Okay. We'll refresh. So it will give undefined over here. Okay. So only object supports this dot operator over here. Okay. So here we are accessing the name from this particular object. Okay, so we are first converting this JSON format into the object format. Okay, and then we are extracting this name property over here. Okay, we have done the same thing when we are extracting the name with the in from the JSON, but it is not giving the this name over here. It is returning as undefined. Okay, so we can't access the property when we are using the JSON format or the string. Okay, we can't access the properties from the strings. Okay, we can only access in the object, or we can access in the array. Okay, so in this way we can convert our object to JSON or from the JSON to object. Okay, so when we are using stringify, we can convert the object into string format or the JSON format, and when we are using this parse method over here, we can convert the JSON to object format. Okay, so when we are sending data to a server, it only understands the text format. Okay, so if you have the object, convert that particular object to string or JSON format. Okay, by the stringify method over here. Okay, so these are the two methods that JSON provides us. Okay, now uh, I will move to our next topic, that is storing data. Means how do we store data? Okay, so when we store data, it only understands the text format. Okay, so we can't like store the data in a object format. Okay, so we have to convert it into JSON or the string format, and then we can store that data in our local storage. Okay, local storage means in your local system. Okay, in your browser actually. Okay, so what I will do is I will take one example over here. I will take this example only. Here I will copy this and I will paste it over here, and what I will do, I will simply copy paste. And now what we want is, here first I will comment this out. So here we are writing an object and then we are converting that object into string format. Okay, now what we want is we want to store this object or this JSON format in our local storage. So how do we store that particular data into our local storage? Local storage means in your local system. Okay, so we will use local storage like this. So this is a keyword for accessing the local storage. Okay, so the local storage dot set item like this. Okay, so it will take two parameters over here. One is the name of the file. Okay, so what you want to name the file, okay, in which you will store that particular data, this data over here. Okay, so you have to give any name, you can give any name, test. Okay, like this. Here we are passing the name of that particular file over here. Okay, and then here what we will do, what data we want to pass in this particular test file. Okay, so we want to pass this JSON format over here. Okay, so we will paste this JSON format over here. Okay, so what we are doing is we are storing the local storage, we are storing this particular data, name Ankit age 23, in our local storage by using the set item property that local storage gives us. Okay, and here it takes two parameters. One is the name of the file. Okay, and then the data that you want to pass. Okay, so we'll save it. So here you can see we are storing that particular data in local storage. So I will give a topic that is storing data like this. So here we are storing this particular data in our local storage. Now I want access to this data. So how can we get access to that data? So now we will retrieve that data over here like this. So here what I will do, I will get access to this test file over here. Okay, so here I will use our local storage dot, you can see we are having this set item, remove item, get item. Okay, so these are all the methods that we have been provided by the local storage. Okay, so in this, inside this, it will take only one parameter, the file name that we want access. Okay, so here we want access of the test file over here. Okay, like this. So we want the this test file. Okay, so here you can see we have converted this obj into string format, okay, in order to save it into our local storage. Now here what we want is we want our original object form. Okay, so here what we'll do, here first we'll store it in our this thing in our variable like this. Okay, so we are first getting access of this text file and we are storing that particular data in our text file. Now what we want, so this text data here is in our JSON format. Okay, because we have converted it into JSON. Okay, here you can see before storing we first converted this particular object into string over here. Okay, means JSON. So when we want access, we'll first convert that particular JSON into an object. And how do we do that? We'll use our JSON dot parse method, okay, for converting JSON to object. Now we will pass this particular text, okay, so this data that we get access from the local storage. Okay, so we are saving it in our text variable. Now I will convert this text variable to an object, okay, by using this parse method over here. Now I will store it in our variable. Okay, suppose JSON or I will use obj here. Okay, obj variable. Now what I will do, I want to output this particular result. Okay, so here in the index.html file will make one empty. So I will target this h1 id. Okay, so I will change it to p. Okay, like this. Okay, so I want to output that particular result inside this demo id. Okay, so I'll target this demo id over here, document dot get element by id, and I will target that particular demo id over here dot inner html equals to, so what we want is, if suppose here I will want to output this particular obj. Okay, so here we'll save it. So what we are doing is we are first taking this object. Okay, so we are first taking this object, so we have to store, we want to store it in our local storage. Okay, so we can't store this object in our local storage because the local storage only understands the text format. Okay, so we have to convert this obj over here, this obj, into this JSON format. Okay, so we are converting this object into JSON format by using the stringify method over here. Okay, and then we are storing this JSON format by using the local storage dot set item method over here. Okay, here test is the name of the file in which the data is stored, and this is the data that we want to store. Okay, now we want to access this particular data that is stored in our local storage. So we'll simply use our local storage dot get item. Okay, so here we are setting the item, so it is set item. Here we want to access, so here it is get item. Okay, so it only takes one parameter, that is the name of the file that we have stored in our local storage. Okay, so here we are passing that particular storage, that particular file name, and here we are storing all the data in our variable, that is text variable over here. So here we have converted that particular data in string format or the JSON format, but we want that particular data come in an object. Okay, so we will convert that particular JSON format into object. Okay, so by how do we convert that? We will use our json.parse and we will convert that particular text variable that is in our string form, okay, or the JSON form. So we are converting it into the object format, and now we want to output it in our demo ID, that is the p tag over here. Okay, so here we have this object over here like this. So we want to access this name, suppose. So what I will do is I will write obj dot name over here. Okay, I will save it and let's see whether we get the result or not. So here you can see we are accessing the object, okay, that we have stored in our local storage. Okay, suppose here I will change the name to Ashish. Okay, now we'll save it, we'll refresh it. So we are getting Ashish. So what we are doing, how are we accessing the local storage? Okay, so this data is coming from local storage. We are first storing the particular object into the local storage, and from there we are accessing the object. Okay, we are not directly accessing the object from here. We are first storing this object and converting that particular object into the JSON format, and then we are storing, and then we are accessing that particular string and we are converting that particular string to object, and then we are accessing all the properties over here. Suppose I will access the age over here, and let's see, we are getting the 23, that is the value of this age. Okay, so suppose I will not convert this string into the like into object. Okay, and now let's see what is the result. So we are accessing obj.age, and here we are not converting this particular string format into object. Okay, now let's see whether it gives the result or not. Here we'll use our name. So here we are getting our name and age. Okay, so what we'll do, we'll simply here, let's see the obj. Okay, now we'll save. So we are getting an object over here. Okay, now what we'll do, we'll output the obj is the object over here. Okay, now what we'll do, we'll simply output the text like this. So here we'll refresh it. So we are getting this particular whole in the string format. Okay, so here we are outputting this text over here, that is in our string format or the JSON format. Okay, so we are outputting that particular JSON format. So here you can see it is in our string format, not an object format over here. So now we know a basic understanding of how do we write a JSON and how do we convert the JSON into an object. Okay, now we'll get into our Ajax. Okay, so here now what we'll do is we will fetch some particular data from the JSON file. Okay, means the JSON format, and I will output it in our particular browser with the help of Ajax. Okay, so here we have seen how do we write Ajax, how do we convert, how do we write a JSON, and how do we convert a particular JSON to an object, or how do we convert an object to a particular JSON. Okay, so we have covered the basic part of what is the syntax of JSON. Now in order to get, so will now work with Ajax. Okay, so first we'll have to make this test.txt file. Okay, from where our data will come. Okay, so we'll make our test.txt. Okay, so here what we'll do is we will take an array. Okay, in and we'll store some data over here. Okay, and from here we will pass that data to our browser with the help of Ajax. Okay, so what we'll do, we'll take an array over here. So I'll take any variable over here like this, and I will store an array over inside this variable arr, and I will store an object inside this array. Okay, so here what I will do, I will place it in this format. Okay, JSON format, that is the string format. So I will give the title as HTML. Now I will place another. So I'll place, sorry, here what I will do, just a minute, I will give another property. Suppose we can give level as easy, like this. So I'm taking any property and value. Okay, you can take any properties. Okay, now I will give another object, and here I will give the title as CSS, like this. So I'm taking a random value over here. Okay, level as medium, like this. So I'm taking two objects over here, and we are storing it in an array. Okay, now we will output this object. Okay, we want to, here I will take another, suppose JS and hard. Okay, like this. So I'm taking three objects over here, and we are storing it in a particular array. So we have made our txt file over here. Now we'll move to our index25 file, that is Ajax file over here. Okay, so now what we'll do is we will fetch data from this txt file and output in our browser. Okay, so we'll use this function only. Okay, this like this syntax only. This is the syntax of Ajax over here. Okay, so what we'll do, we will write a function over here. Okay, so here you can see what I will remove this, or what we'll do, we'll place it this, we'll place this line of code over here, and I will place over here. Okay, so what we are doing is first we are initializing the HTML, we are creating this HTML HTTP request object, and then we are telling XHTTP that if any change happens, okay, run a function, execute this function over here. Okay, and from here what I will do, we have some code over here. Okay, so we'll remove this line of code over here. Okay, so this will be the syntax. So we are telling to open the connection. Okay, and we are taking the get connection, and here we are passing the URL, means the path of that particular file from where we have to extract the data, and here we are telling that it should be a asynchronous request. Okay, and then we are sending the data. Okay, like this. Now what we'll do, we'll perform a function over here. Okay, so here we'll write a function that will be passed with, that will be called over here. Okay, so we want access of this test file. Okay, so what we'll do is we will pass a parameter. Okay, suppose any parameter, suppose arr, like this. Okay, so we are passing an argument inside this function. Okay, so we'll loop through this ARR is this over here. Okay, here you can see. So we'll loop through all of this data and output it in our browser. Okay, so what we'll do, we'll loop through all of the data by using the for loop. So we'll use our for loop over here, and we write for loop like this, variable I. So we'll start with our 0, and then what I will do is I should be always less than this length over here. Okay, so it should be less than ARR dot length, means this length always it should be less than. So suppose the length is 3, so it will go till 2. Okay, means because here we are starting it with 0 over here. Suppose here we'll give suppose 3. So it will move till 2, means 0, 1, 2. So it will uh, get the 3 loops. Okay, and then it will stop the for loop over here. Okay, if suppose here we'll give 4, so it will loop 3 times. Okay, sorry, 4 times means 0, 1, 2, 3. Okay, it will not go till 4. Okay, because it is not equals to over here. Okay, so it will only go till 3, means 0, 1, 2, 3. It will loop 4 times. So it will loop 4 times and then it will go out of the for loop. So here we'll use ARR. So you'll not type manually. Okay, so here we have our 3 objects. So we'll not type manually. We'll simply use the array property, that is the length property. Okay, ARR dot length like this. Okay, so this ARR is coming from here. Okay, not from here. Indirectly it is coming from here, but we are passing that parameter, this argument, okay, into this function. So we want access to this text txt variable. So we are passing that particular variable in this argument. So it can be of any name. Okay, so it can be of array. Okay, so we have to pass array like this. Okay, so array dot length. So it can be of any name. So here what we'll do, we are looping through all of this array, and then we'll use increment that particular result, that particular looping. Okay, so now we will write our code here. Okay, so what we'll do, we want to output a particular result. Okay, so we'll make some variable, an empty variable in which we'll add our output. Okay, suppose here we will in output our, here we'll take an empty string in which we'll output our result. Okay, previously I've told you we'll take an empty string, okay, in which we'll loop and output all of our data. Okay, so like this, output equals to output plus, and then we will write our code over here. Okay, so we can write it in our in a short format like this, output plus equals to, like this. We can also write the same thing in this format over here. Okay, so here, so what I will do is we will take a paragraph over here like this. Okay, so here what we'll do, we want to access this text file. Okay, so here we'll want to output our title. So in which way we can do that? So here, but first I will wrap this p over here like this, and here what we'll do next is we will simply use our plus sign in order to differentiate between the dynamic text and the, means this is coming from like here. Okay, we want to access from the for loop. Okay, so we'll simply use ARR, and then I means the particular position that we are currently at. Okay, and then we want to access our title like this. So ARR I dot title, okay, and then we'll simply wrap this paragraph like this, okay. So what we are doing is, here I'll simply give a space over it. So we are wrapping it in our paragraph, and then we are outputting our title over here. So we are using this concatenation sign because here we are not outputting it in a dynamic way. Here we are outputting the this from this is coming dynamically. Arr I dot title, this title is coming dynamically from here, okay. So we are concatenating both the things, okay. So arr I means if it will be at the 0 position, 0 means this first position, okay. So the title will be HTML, then it will loop and come to the next position, that is I will be now 1. So then see this title will be covered, then it will loop from second to third, then the I position changes to 2, then the title will be JS, okay. In this way all the titles will be covered, okay. Then the loop stops and it will move out of the for loop, okay. Now what we'll do, we will output this result over here, okay. So we'll output this result in our demo id, okay, demo dot inner html equals to output like this, okay. So we have like we have executed, we have written our code inside that function, okay. Now the time to call that function. So here we'll call our function, okay. So that is my function like this, okay. So it is taking an argument over here. So I will pass a random argument, okay. So here what I will do, I'll suppose pass this ARR. So what is this ARR, okay. So this is the response that is coming from this test file over here, okay. So how do we get a response? By using the response text method over there, okay, that Ajax provides us, okay. So what I will do is I will store that variable ARR equals to, so what we'll do, we'll use our this dot response text like this, okay. So this, the response that is coming, we are storing that response in our ARR variable, means this response, okay. So we are passing this test file, and the response that is coming, we are storing that in our ARR variable, and then we are passing that variable inside this function, okay. So here you can see this array refers to this ARR over here, okay. So we are looping to that particular array, and we are outputting the result, okay. And one more thing here, it is not coming in an object, okay. So we can't access the title. So in order to make that particular JSON to an object, we will use our JSON dot parse method over here like this, and we'll wrap this response here. We'll pass this string and convert it into an object. So we'll save this, okay. Now we have to change the path actually. So here we'll change our path to index25.js, and we'll save it. Now we have our function ready, and we are calling from here, okay. Now when we see our result, okay, we'll refresh. So here you can see we are getting some error over here. So here we are getting this error because we are not opening this file in our local server, okay. So we'll open our XAMPP, okay. We are not starting XAMPP over here, so we'll run our file in our XAMPP, okay. So we'll first start our XAMPP. So we have started our XAMPP over here, and now we will run our project in our local server, okay. Here, so we have we are getting another error. So we are not getting that error now. Now we are getting another error, that is XML HTTP request on ready state change. Okay, here we'll see our, so it is coming, the error is coming in our JSON file actually. So while what I will do, I will check our test.txt file over here, and here what I will do, here we have a, okay, so I've left the comma over here, okay, and it is not necessary to store this particular array in a variable over here, okay. So I will remove this, and now I am only storing an array. We are not storing this array in a particular variable, okay. So we have missed our comma over here, okay. Now when we hit refresh, our error will be gone, okay. So it is coming arr I dot title, okay. So we have mentioned string over here, okay. So we have mentioned a string over here. We don't have to mention a string because it is coming dynamically, okay. So this array over here, it is coming dynamically. So if we mention it as string, so it will consider it as string. So it will like copy this over here, and it will output the same thing over here, okay. And one more thing, here we have taken arr ay array, and here we are only taking arr, so it will be a array I dot title like this. Now when we save this, we'll get our uh, output, okay, that is HTML, CSS and JS. So this is coming, this result is coming from this txt file over here, okay. So the all the titles are coming HTML, CSS and JS, okay. So we have used Ajax in order to fetch the data from the JSON, okay. So explain from start. What we have done is, we have created a txt file in which we have mentioned an array of objects, okay. So we have mentioned 3 objects over here, okay. Now what we have done, we are first creating an object, that is XML HTTP request object. Then what we are saying, x HTTP variable, because this object is stored in this XHTTP variable, and now this XHTTP object provides a method that is on ready state change, means if any change happens to this object, execute a function, okay. And only execute a function if this dot ready state is equals to 4, means if the response is ready and the status is okay, only then return the response, okay. Now in order to get that response, we'll use this dot response text, okay, this dot response text. So this is the same response that we'll get from here, okay, this text file. So this is the method of how we take the data from this txt file, okay. We get the response, okay. So with the help of response text, we get the data from the txt file. So we are using this dot response text, and now we are converting this whole data to an object, okay, by using the JSON dot parse, and we are storing all the data, all the objects into this ARR, okay, over here. And then we are calling a function, okay. And in this function, what we are doing is, we are looping through all of the array. Here you can see this object, here we are storing that particular object in this ARR, and we are passing this array into this function as an argument, okay. You can see we are passing this ARR into this function as an argument, and here you can see we are writing this array. We can give any argument name, okay. So here it is taking one argument, so it will also take one argument over here, okay, that is this array. Now we'll loop through all of this array and output the result, okay. And here we are taking an empty string, and we are outputting all of the array, means all of the titles, and we are looping through all of the titles and outputting it in this output variable, okay. We are first adding that particular like one title and then we are storing it in this output, and then again we are storing means we are concatenating, okay, continuously into this output, okay, means we are adding and storing, okay. Actually, like here we can write like this: output equals to output plus. So we are first adding the first loop title, okay, and then we are storing in this output variable over here. So now first we have currently the HTML title, then we are looping through another, that is CSS title, and then we are again storing HTML and CSS, then again we are looping, then we are storing HTML, CSS and JS, okay. Then we are looping through, we are looping three times, okay, because the length is 3, okay, so we are looping three times. So I should be less than 3, so it will loop through 0 1 2, means it will loop three times, okay. So here we'll get three outputs, means HTML, CSS and JavaScript, okay. And we are storing this in our output variable over here, and here you can see we are only targeting title, okay. Array I means first it will go through the first loop, okay. First loop means this loop, so it will uh, target the HTML title, then it will go through the second loop, okay. It will go through the second loop. I position here means the zero position, okay. Zero position means the first position over here. Currently it will be at the first position, then it will go through the second position, then it will move to third position over here, okay, like this. So it will loop through all of the titles and it will output and store it in this output variable over here, okay. And then we will output the whole result in our browser, okay. And here we are calling this function over here, okay. So this is the basic syntax of on how we can fetch data from a JSON file, okay. So this is the txt file in which we have mentioned a JSON format data, okay. So now we know how can we extract data through Ajax by the this by from the JSON format data. So that's all for Ajax, okay. So this is the basic syntax of Ajax, okay. Inside this we used our certain methods. Here we have used json.parse, okay. So we have used our JSON method over here and we are getting this response from here, okay. So we are extracting data from a JSON format data and we are storing it in our variable and we are outputting that particular variable inside our browser, okay. So that's all for Ajax. Now we'll move to our JSON, okay. Now we'll learn some more things about JSON. Now we'll know about our JSON objects, okay. So we'll mention our topic as JSON objects, okay. So JSON objects are basically written in key value pairs, okay. Just a minute. JSON objects, okay. So these are basically written in key value pairs like this, okay. So JSON objects are written in key value pairs. So how we can write our objects, JSON objects? So here I will take a variable obj equals to, suppose, name, and then we can give John like this, and then we can mention age, and then we can mention any age, 20, okay. So here we can access our, suppose we want to console log, okay. So we want to console log, suppose, name. So we'll target the object and then the property. So in this we can access our property by the dot operator, okay. So this is the object and this is the property over here. So here what I will do, I will simply comment all of this. Here I will comment all of this, okay. Now I will console log the name, okay. So in order to, here I will change the path over here, 2625 dot 26.js. Okay, now we'll save, we'll refresh it. So we'll get our name as John. Okay, so in this way we can write our JSON objects. So this is the basic syntax on how we can write our object. Now if we want to loop through this object, so how can we do that? The previous lectures I've told you, when we are looping through an object, we can use in. Okay, suppose here in when we are using for loop, we can use like this. Okay, variable I equals to 0 I. So here we are looping through an array. Okay, but when we want to loop through an object, we can use in. Okay, means here we can take any name. Okay, suppose x in, and we want to loop through this object. Okay, so this will loop through all the properties. This x will loop through all the properties of this object. Okay, so here I will mention the name of the object, that is obj. So this x will loop through all of the properties, means name, age. Okay, it will loop through all of the properties and mention and output all the values. Okay, so what I will do, I will simply output that particular result in our browser. Okay, so we'll target our demo id dot inner html, and we want to loop. So we'll simply use our plus equals to, means it will loop, store, and again loop and store. Okay, so it will continue the process. Okay, here what I will do, when we are looping through a particular array or object, it is compulsory to write like this. Okay, because we are continuously looping and extracting the data and storing it, and then we are looping, extracting the data and storing it. Okay, so it is a continuous process, so it is necessary to use like this, means it is adding and then storing, then adding and storing the data. Okay, like this. So here we will simply output the x, means the property of this, means the value of this property. Okay, so it will loop through all of the properties and output all of the values of that particular object. Okay, now here we'll save it and let's see what is the result. Now we'll refresh. So here we are getting the name and age. Okay, so we are accessing the name and age. Okay, suppose what I will do, I want to access the values. So how we can access the values over here? So we'll simply use obj over here. Object means obj like this. Here we are now accessing the values because we are targeting the obj and then the property of all the like all the values. Okay, here x is the property. Okay, here name is the property, age is the property. Okay, so x comes under this, name and age comes under x over here, and this is the object. So how do we access our values? By writing obj and then the object name and then the property name, suppose like this. So we can access, here you can see obj.x or obj bracket x. Okay, suppose we'll target it like this. So whether it works or not, we'll see obj dot x like this. We'll simply save it and refresh it. So we are not getting, we are getting undefined. Okay, so we'll not use this dot operator over here. We'll simply use this bracket notation. Okay, like this. Now when we save this, you can see we are getting our values. Okay, so when we are using in this for in loop, okay, so suppose we want to access the values, always use the object, then the bracket notation, and inside that the property, means this x over here. So this is the property over here. It is the name and the age. So we are looping through name and age, we are accessing the values of this name and age over here. Okay, so always keep in mind, when we are looping through an object, always use the for in loop. Okay, and here we are mentioning a particular variable that will loop through all the properties of this object, and here after in, provide that object name in which you want to loop. through this X. Okay, and then continuously add and store that particular, use this format over here. Plus equals to means it will continuously add and store that particular data in the same variable over here. Okay, so it will add this obj and it will store it in this inner HTML, then it will loop and then add and store. Okay, so it will continuously add and store all the results in this inner HTML, demo.inner HTML. Okay, so this is the for in loop through which we can uh, loop through the objects. Okay, now we'll learn how to write a nested JSON object. Okay, so here we are simply writing a object. Now we'll write an object and inside that another object, inside that another object. Okay, so kind of nested. So I'll give a title hour as nested JSON object like this. So what I will do now, here I will take a variable. So I will take say same variable obj equals to, and then we'll write an object over here and we'll give a name, suppose name property like this, and give a certain name, suppose Shakshi. Okay, like this. Then we will provide another property that is age. Okay, so I will make it lowercase and I will give a certain age, suppose 43 here. Now what I will do, I'll provide another property and here I will mention cars. Okay, so suppose this Sakshi has certain cars. Okay, so we'll make another object. So suppose she has suppose 3 cars. Okay, so we'll make another object car 1. Suppose she has Reta. Okay, then suppose she has car 2. Suppose that is Alto. Okay, so she has 2 cars. Okay, so you can see we are nesting this object. Okay, so we have our 2 objects and inside that we have another 2 objects. Okay, inside this we have another 2 objects. Okay, so in this way we can write our nested objects. Now how can we access this? Suppose we want to access Alto. So how can we access? So what I will do is simply console log. Okay, so what I want to access, I want to access the Alto. So we'll first target our main obj object. So we'll target obj dot, then the property name is cars over here. Okay, so we'll simply write cars. So inside this obj we want to access this cars over here, and inside that what we want to access, we want to access this property car2, that is Alto. So we'll give that property name. Okay, so cars dot car2 like this. So we are first accessing the main object, then we are accessing the nested object, means the cars, and then we are accessing the object, the property that Alto, that the Alto value contains. Okay, so first obj, then cars, then car2. Okay, now we'll save it and let's see what is the result. We'll refresh it. So we are getting our Alto over here. Okay, suppose we'll change it to car1 like this. So now we'll get our car1 value, that is Creta. Okay, we'll save it. So we are getting our Creta over here. Okay, so in this way we can access the values of the nested objects. Okay, now what we'll do, we can also change the values. Okay, suppose we want to change the value of this car1. Okay, so what you can do, you can simply use the same thing obj dot cars dot car1. Okay, like this. So it will give the access of this uh, property, and then you can use any name. Okay, suppose you want to change it to Baleno. Okay, like this. So you are changing the value of this car1 because you are accessing the that particular value of that car1 value. Okay. Now, when we save this and output this car1, you'll notice the difference that the car1 value has been changed to Baleno. Okay. Now let's hit refresh. Now you can see car1 property has been changed to Baleno. Okay. So here we are dynamically changing the car1 value. Okay. So in this way we can change any value of that particular object. Okay. So we can also delete the properties. Okay, suppose we want to delete this car1 property. So what we'll do is we'll simply use like this delete. So it is simple. So we'll simply use our delete keyword and then delete that particular car. Okay, so here I will use store this in our variable updated obj equals to like this. Just a minute. Here I'm getting some error. So I'll remove this. So here I'll simply delete this. Okay, so I'm now deleting this car1. Okay, so I'm deleting this car1 property over here and we are storing it in our updated obj variable. Now we'll console log the updated obj. Okay, so now this updated object will not have this car1 property because we are deleting this car1 property over here. We'll save it and refresh it. Here we are getting our value as true. Okay, so we have deleted our object over here. Okay, so here we'll pass our original object over here. Okay, so we'll save this and now we'll get our updated value. Okay, so you can see we have inside cars we have only our car2. Okay, we don't have our car1 property because we are deleting this car1 property. Okay, so in this way we can also delete our object. Okay, so in this lecture I will end this topic over here only. In the next lecture we'll start from our JSON arrays. Okay, so we have studied our objects. Okay, in the next lecture we'll study about JSON arrays.